A vote about immigration, but really so much more than that. The German parliament has narrowly rejected a controversial bill whose passing would have shattered a political taboo, and not because of its content. To pass, it would have required the backing of the far-right AfD. Unthinkable for many lawmakers, but not for this man, the leader of the conservative opposition, Friedrich Merz. In the end, it failed as even members of his own party deserted him. With Germany electing a new parliament next month, there was a lot of political capital riding on this vote. The question now is, who's going to claim it? I'm Nicole Fröhlich in Berlin, and this is The Day. Lawmakers here in Germany have rejected a controversial bill on immigration reform. The draft legislation was proposed by the conservative opposition CDU party and sparked outrage, not necessarily because of its content, but because the only chance for it to pass would have been with backing from the far-right Alternative for Germany party. A successful vote would have marked the first time in Germany's post-war history that federal legislation is pushed through with the support of the far-right. Now, it did not pass. And still, many ask, is the genie now out of the bottle?
A sigh of relief as the result is announced, and a crushing defeat for conservative opposition leader Friedrich Merz. The German parliament has rejected his draft bill aimed at limiting irregular migration. In a heated and sometimes emotional debate, Merz, conservative leader and chancellor candidate, faced accusations of seeking to push his legislation through with the backing of the far-right AfD.
The fall from grace will be with you forever, but we can still close the gates of hell together. You must raise the firewall. You must raise the firewall again. Raise the firewall again.
And the German foreign minister accused him of not telling the truth.
What is unacceptable is making a mistake, failing to acknowledge it with the humility to say, I got it wrong, and instead shifting the blame onto others and spreading falsehoods. Especially at a time when people in our country are fearful.
Before the vote, Merz defended his approach of tolerating coincidental AfD-backed majorities, as he is not actively looking for them.
No one from my party extends a hand to the AfD. No one. This party is, for the most part, a far-right extremist party. This party undermines the foundation of our democracy.
Merz lacked the support of 12 lawmakers from his own party group, a decisive margin. The far-right seized the moment to question his leadership.
The rejection of the bill by his own parliamentary group is the disempowerment of Friedrich Merz as a chancellor candidate.
While it was surely Merz suffering a blatant defeat, after the debate, no one came out looking like a winner.
Matthew Karnitschnig is the editor-in-chief of the European news website Euroactiv and is here to talk more about this memorable day in the German parliament. Matthew, good to see you again. Were you surprised by this outcome?
Well, thanks for having me. I was surprised, actually, because it looked after the vote on Wednesday where the CDU's motion to have this vote was passed with the help of the AfD, that they would have the majority that they needed. So it did come as a bit of a surprise. That said, it is not unusual in really controversial votes like this for the CDU's own backbenches to either abstain or to vote against a motion like this. So it's not really that unique, and yet because there was all this anticipation today that it would go through, it was surprising.
Merz did go all in with this vote, didn't he? What does this defeat mean for him?
I personally think it might not be quite as negative as some people are predicting now, and that's because after this vote, this law never really had a possibility of becoming enshrined in German law, because it would have had to have passed the second chamber of the German parliament.
What about, sorry, let me jump in there, because this for as long as this motion was brought forward and the AFD made clear that they were going to vote for it, it was long not about migration anymore and not about this bill. What about moral high ground?
Right, and that's sort of where I was going with this, because I think that they crossed that Rubicon on Wednesday already and went further today, because the AFD voted with the CDU both on Wednesday and today. And that was really the significance of what has happened here, because that's the first time that has happened. And I think what that means now is that in the future, and you have to remember there's going to be an election in a few weeks, as we know, and there will be new majorities after that election. So this really sets a precedent for the AFD to vote again with the CDU in future instances like this, where the party has difficulty getting a majority from the political center, from the establishment party. So I do think that this is a very significant moment. I think you said before the genie is out of the bottle, and I think that is really the case, and that's why this is such a historic week in German politics.
Maybe right before the election, and especially in a week like this, is not the right time to do that kind of soul searching that Germany and its legislators seem to need at this point when it comes to dealing with the AFD, right? What do we do going forward? Can the Brandmauer, as it's known here in Germany, the firewall against the far right, which Merz insists he did not breach, can it last?
Well, I personally think that it has already crumbled after this. And the reason for that is that if you look in you look around Europe at other countries that have faced similar situations, this kind of thing usually doesn't happen overnight, that the establishment parties, the centrist parties, go into a coalition with the far right. It usually happens over a period of years, and it's a process. So I think this is definitely the first step in that process. And as I said, it becomes easier now to have similar votes like this. And when they do, it probably won't be so controversial. And then the next step will, at some level, probably not at the federal level, but at the state level in Germany, I think you'll see eventually a coalition between the CDU and the AFD, the far right. So I think this is just another step in that process, but this is a big step. And I think it sort of establishes that the Brandmauer, the firewall, or the cordon sanitaire, as some people call it, is no longer really standing.
And yet, all week, conservative politicians have been arguing that, relying on the far right to pass a law doesn't breach the Convention against relying on the far right to pass a law. What do legislators, especially of the CDU, those who today as well voted in favor of this law, have to show for the risks that they've taken?
Well, I think we're going to see that on February 23rd. I think the problem they face is that, as the Germans like to say, you can't be half pregnant. So, this is definitely, a big step for them. And the question is it something that voters are going to punish them for, or are they going to say, this is exactly the kind of cooperation we need, because we, the voters in Germany, are so frustrated with the gridlock that we've seen, particularly on this issue around asylum, around migration. We need to move forward with tougher measures to control the flow of migrants into the country. And, I think that Merz made a big bet here. He's betting that this is what the population wants and that it was worth it to take this risk. And, we're going to find out soon enough if he was right about that. I think a lot of people think that the center will always lose when it tries to kind of copy the far right on issues like this. And so from a political science point of view, this is a very interesting experiment that we're seeing unfold here.
Yeah, maybe briefly before I let you go, let's look at the issue that he was presumably trying to tackle here. Has this debate done anything to tackle the problems of Germany's migration system?
Well, I think he's certainly raised some interesting ideas and proposals about what could be done. There are a lot of questions, though, about how realistic what was in this law would be, even if it went into effect, because it contradicts a lot of European laws. So this would have really set up a showdown between Germany and the European Union ultimately. But it has put these important issues on the front burner again. I think you could say it's important for the German parliament to be discussing and debating these issues, because in all of the polls that we see about what the public is really worried about, migration ranks, right at the top, especially after these recent terrorist attacks and other killings that we've seen in Germany that have involved migrants, and this is really polarizing the society here. So I think it is an issue that the political sphere needs to address.
That was Matthew Karnitschnig, editor-in-chief of Euroactiv. Always great speaking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.